guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know who I am, hello, my name is Erin and I am a new grad respiratory therapist. And today's video I got a little creative. I'm going to be going over how like rounds work. Now this is just going to be like a basic overview of what my hospital does for floor rounding. So this is just like on the floors. This isn't for the ICU. This is just going to be like a general easy peasy little overview of what I do on rounds and how I do things. And keep in mind that everybody's hospital is going to be different. They're going to have different policies in the way they do things. So this is just how my hospital does it and how I do rounds where I work. So I got kind of creative and I made a little mock sheet of kind of what our patient sheets look like. We use Epic to chart, and so I just made like a little patient sheet. And instead of using just names that I made up myself, I added like celebrity names and then like Patrick Star and Jessica Rabbit. So I didn't want anybody to, you know, think that I was taking any patient information or, you know, not complying with HIPAA. And I also did not want to just come up with a name randomly and that end up accidentally being the name of somebody else. So I just chose celebrity names that a lot of people know and that don't necessarily need to be private, but this is fake, this is pretend. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm done jib jabbering, let's get into it. Okay, so I'm sorry about like the weird angle. I'm kind of working with what I have. My camera is sitting on top of a box of chips right now. So this is the patient sheet I made. Like I said, I use Epic. So Epic is very versatile, I guess. Like you can design your patient sheet, the layout, however you want it. Some people like it like this. I like mine like this, and you can personalize like what columns you want on yours. So how I have mine is how I have the room number on this side, the person's name, their age, date of birth, and whether they're male or female, their ID number, and between their ID number and this procedures column, I have like what their problem is, like what their main diagnosis is. But just because, you know, this is just a little brief deal, I didn't bother putting all that. Then I have procedures and meds, and then I have 3 blank columns over here just for me to write notes on and everything. So this is the layout. First thing I do is obviously I get my assignment, and then I print my papers, and then I get report. And people like to do report differently. How I write down things after I get report is like I'll write down like what their oxygen device is on. Like let's say that I get report and Oprah is on 2-liter nasal cannula, so I'll just write 2 liters right there. And then say Elvis has COVID, and he's on some kind of precautions. Over here I'll put PPE, or I'll put COVID, and then I'll just underline it just so that it's like right there where I can see it. And then after report, I'll go to the computer and I'll find anybody with a scheduled med. So I'll go down the line here, and then I'll see here that there's an albuterol 2-puff, but that's a PRN med. So I won't worry about that right this second just because it is PRN. And then I'll go down and look, and I'll see this person has Duaneb Q6. So what I'll do is I'll underline that right there so that I can see it. And then I'll go down and look, and then there's another Duaneb Q6. This is just while awake. That is significant later. So I'll underline that. And then they're also getting sodium chloride Q12, so I will underline that as well. This person gets a daily Brio inhaler, and I am not going to highlight that just yet. Daily, and I work night shift, I forgot to include that. I work nights, so daily meds, they're only given first thing in the morning. First rounds, 7 a.m. So daily meds, night shift, doesn't have to worry about that. That's only for day shift. So even though it's a scheduled med, I'm not going to highlight that because it's a day shift med. So I don't see any more scheduled meds So then what I do is what I'm looking for in the computer for the people that had the scheduled meds, I'll look in the MAR, like where the list of medicines and when they're due and who gave them is at in the computer, and I will look to see when the next one is due. This one is Q6, so I'll have to go see that person twice to go give it to them. So what I'll do is I'll put 2 little squares right here in the corner, showing that I have to go in there at least twice, and then I will look in the computer to see when the next one is due. So let's just say one is due at 7 p.m. and the next one is due at 1 in the morning. The next person that gets scheduled meds, they get a DUNUB Q6 while awake. So unlike this person, say if the next scheduled time is to give it at 7 p.m., I don't have to go back at 1 a.m. because normally at 1 a.m. people are asleep. So if it's a Q6 while awake or a Q4 while awake, we only have to go in that first time to give it, because normally in like the wee hours of the night people are typically asleep. But that's only if it's a while awake med. I have to go in at 1900. But also this person gets a Q12 med. And so just for this, just to be easy, I'll say that this is also due at 7 p.m. So I'll give both of these at the same time, and that's it for scheduled medicine. So next what I'll do is I'll start again at the top and just look to see what everybody gets. So this first person, Albert Einstein, gets a DUNUB Q4. Oh, I totally forgot to look at that. So this person gets a scheduled med as well. So Q4, you go in 3 times in a 4-hour or in a 12-hour period. So let's say Q4, it's due at 8 p.m., midnight, and 4 a.m. Okay, I totally overlooked that. That was my fault. Okay, so all my people with scheduled meds. So next, I'll see that Albert Einstein gets an incentive spirometer, Q4. So my hospital only has us do incentive spirometers while awake. So they will just get that incentive done the first rounds. So I only have to do this first rounds right there. Then Oprah here, she gets pulse ox Q shift, oxygen. She does a flutter Q6 while awake. She gets a Q4 albuterol PRN, and then she also has a CPAP order at bedtime. So this lady gets quite a bit. Starting at the top, so the oxygen continuous, that just shows that she's on continuous oxygen. What we do for somebody who is on oxygen is that every shift we check their SAT. So for my hospital, a shift is a 8-hour period. So from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., and then 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's an 8-hour window that is considered one shift. Now, if any of this doesn't make any sense, please feel free to ask questions and I will answer them as best as I can. But for me, whenever I get to work in the middle of a shift. So between 3 p.m. and 11 p.m., that's one shift. I come in at 7 p.m., so that's in the middle of that shift. So I don't have to check pulse oxes until 11 p.m., which obviously if they have other things due around that time, I will check it. But then I'll have to go back in the middle of the shift to check it just for a Q shift check. But for these simple purposes, I won't get into all that because that's just kind of confusing. So pulse ox Q shift. So I know I at least have to go in for my second round to check their pulse ox. Then they get a flutter device, Q6 while awake, and then an albuterol, Q4 PRN, and a CPAP at night. So I go in for first rounds, I'm gonna do the flutter, and then I will ask them if they want to go on their CPAP. So I know I need to go in their first rounds to do the flutter device, and then second rounds to do the oxygen check. And also PRNs are checked Q shift as well. So I won't have to document anything on the PRN med until second rounds, but I will get to that whenever I go over second rounds here in a little bit. Taylor Swift, along with her scheduled med, she is also on a BiPAP. So that's non-invasive ventilation. BiPAPs in my hospital are checked Q4. So you go in, do whatever you need to each round, but you check on the person if they're on the BiPAP every 4 hours and document the BiPAP. So I need to go check on her all 3 rounds. So Elvis here, along with his 2 scheduled meds here, he is also on oxygen as needed, and he also has a trach. So he gets trach care and a Q4 suction. So nurses, and this is kind of strange, in my hospital nurses do trach care, so we don't have to worry about that, but we do have to go in and suction our trach patients Q4. So I will go and see him every round. And just because, you know, it's good practice, at least in my opinion, as an RT, even though we don't do trach care, I will check on their inner cannula and their ties and everything while I'm in there. But if any care or anything needs to be done, like cleaning and the maintenance, the nurses do that. I will go see Elvis all 3 rounds. For Patrick here, he gets that daily med, so I don't have to worry about that. I just kind of pretend like that's not even there. He gets oxygen continuous, and he also has a pulse ox check Q shift. So I only need to go see Patrick this time, my second rounds, for that next shift that starts at 11 p.m. because next second round started around 11 p.m. I only have to go check his pulse ox that one time. And then for Miss Rabbit here, she has an incentive Q4, and like I said, incentives are only done while awake, so I will only have to go in this first rounds and do her incentive. Now the reason I do the times along with the scheduled meds is so that obviously I know what time they're due, because you only have a certain amount of time, which in my hospital it's an hour before and an hour after they're due to give it. And then also I know who to go see first, because obviously meds are your first priority. I'm gonna use a different color here. So now that I've got all my pre-stuff done, now I'm gonna go start my rounds. So I'm gonna go pull my meds for everybody that gets a med, and then I'll start with whoever is due first. So these 2 are due first. Honestly, I guess it really doesn't matter who you pick to do first, since they're both due at the same time. This person has a BiPAP, so I'm going to use my judgment and go see this person first. Whenever I get in my room, I'm going to introduce myself, all that, scan the patient, scan the med, give the med, and then I will put a check mark right there that shows that I saw that person, and then I will write down like if she's not on her BiPAP, I will ask her, you know, when she wants to go on it, or if she's on it continuously and the doctor wants her to stay on it continuously. You know, obviously I'll just write down the settings and everything that the BiPAP is on, just whatever settings that your hospital wants you to chart. I'll write those settings down, and then I will write down like their SAT and everything over here. So let's just say that she's not on her BiPAP right now. She's on 2-liter nasal cannula. So I'll write what oxygen she's on right here, and then I will write down like her SAT and everything over here so I can chart on it. So she's 98%, her heart rate is 75, and she's breathing 20 times a minute. So that's how I write that. And then for my next person, I'll go and see, and I'll do the same thing. So I will go in, introduce myself, scan the patient, scan the med, run the med. I will write down what oxygen he's on. So this person has oxygen PRN, so they can take it on and off as they want. Right now we'll just say this person is on room air, and RA is room air. I'll say this person is 95%, heart rate is 80, and they're breathing 18 times a minute. And then also like breath sounds as well, like diminished. This person can be clear. So for the next person, I'll go up here because their med wasn't due until 8 p.m. So I'll do the same thing. So we'll say that this person is on room air, satting 99%, heart rate is 65, breathing 16 times a minute, and then I'll just say that they were clear as well. So for their incentive, I will have them pull at least 10 times, but if they want to stop before, if they're having any pain or whatever, they can stop just whenever they want. But off to the side, I'll write right here that they did, let's say 1,500 times 10. So they pulled 1,500 10 times for their incentive. And that's the only time they have to do their incentive tonight. Next person I'll go see is this woman right here. Just because I don't have any more scheduled meds, I don't have any more meds to do, so this person will be the next person that I go see. So I'll go in here and I'll have her do her flutter device. So she's not getting any meds, so I don't have to scan her or anything. I'll write down what time I go in here. Whenever you go in a person's room and you scan their med, it automatically saves the time in the computer. So I didn't have to worry about writing any times down with these guys. But anybody that doesn't get anything that's scheduled, I'll have to keep up with what time I was in there. So let's just say I went in this room at 8:01 p.m. just as an example. I'll write down 20:01 for 8:01 military time. That's what time I was in there. And then I will have them do their flutter device. So I'll just write down that they did a PEP of 5 times 10. If you don't know what a PEP device is or a flutter device, you can look it up or whatever. This isn't me going over what that is. This is just me showing like how rounds are done. So they did their flutter device. So they did a PEP of 5 and they did it 10 times. So that's that. I'm gonna say that this person is on 2 liters like my report said. At this time, their SAT was 98, their pulse was 99, and they're breathing 18 times a minute. And then if they have a CPAP order, if the person goes on CPAP at night, first rounds, even if they don't have anything else, like even if this lady only had her CPAP order, I will go in their room first rounds and ask, do you need help going on your CPAP? What time do you want to go on? If it's their own CPAP machine and it's not the hospital's, a lot of the times they don't need help going on it because it is theirs. But for this example, we'll just say that it's the hospital's CPAP and she wants to go on at 11 p.m. So right in time for next rounds. So I'll just write 2,300 right there so I can see it. So this person's done. I don't have to see her again until next rounds. So go all the way down to Patrick Starr. Now, Patrick Starr only has a daily med, which like I said is only a day shift thing, so I don't have to do anything with that. They get a pulse ox check and they're on oxygen. So I don't have to see this person just yet until 11 p.m. Now if in report the day shift therapist told me that there was an issue or whatever, then yes, I would go and see them first rounds anyway. But just for this example, I'm just going to say there's no problems. They're here for something not respiratory related. They're totally fine. I can wait and see them second rounds. And obviously if there's something wrong, the nurse will call me. So then we're going to go down here to Jessica Rabbit. The only thing she had ordered is an incentive spirometry Q4. So this is the only time I'll have to see her because we only do incentives while awake. So I will write down what time I went into this person's room. So let's say 8:10 p.m. I'm gonna say she's on room air, satting 99, heart rate of 80, breathing 18 times a minute, and then I'll just say she pulled 1,000 8 times because she only wanted to do it 8 times. First round's done. So I will go and chart all this and then do whatever I need to do between rounds, like take a bathroom break, eat a snack, if somebody calls me or whatever, like if the nurse needs something, then I'll go do that. But that's all just between rounds. So round 1 is done. So around 11 o'clock, round 2 starts. I see that I have 2 scheduled meds for second rounds. So this person gets one at midnight and this person doesn't get one until 1 a.m. because this is a Q6 med. Like I said, from my hospital, for scheduled meds, you have an hour before and an hour after. So if I start my rounds at 11 o'clock, then this will be way too early to give. So I'll wait and give this a little bit later in the rounds just so that it'll be on time. And sometimes if I have only a Q6 med to give, then I can start rounds at like 11:30, 11:45. It doesn't have to be right at 11 o'clock. But since this person said that she wanted to go on her CPAP at 11 p.m., I'll go ahead and start. So I'll go ahead and just go to her room first, put her on her CPAP, and then listen to her and assess her for her PRN, because the PRN assessments are due Q shift. So I'll go in, let's say I go in at 23:10, put a check mark there. I will put her on her BiPAP, or on her CPAP. So CPAP with a CPAP of, I don't know, 7. And then just write down whatever other information that your hospital has you chart. Like for my hospital, we have to write down like the CPAP serial number and all that. But again, this is just simple how rounds work kind of thing. So I'm not going to get into all that. So I'm going to check her SAT and then her heart rate and listen to her breath sounds to see if she needs her albuterol for her PRN treatment. So what I'll do is I'll put my pulse ox on her, see that her SAT is 97, which is good. I'll see that her heart rate is 95 and that she's breathing 18 times a minute. And then I'll listen to her, and if I hear anything other than wheezing, we don't give the PRN. So albuterol is given for bronchospasm. So if you don't hear any wheezes, then you don't have to worry about giving it to her. So I'll just say that her breath sounds are clear at this time. So she's on her CPAP, she doesn't need her PRN, so I'll also write no PRN so I don't forget to chart that. So I don't have to assess her for any more PRNs. She doesn't get any flutter device because that was only due on first rounds. So, but since she is on her CPAP, since she did want to put her CPAP on, I will just come and peek my head in the door for third rounds. Just because, you know, she's got a mask on and positive pressure is not natural. So I won't have to wake her up or check her SAT or anything. I just like to poke my head in the door and see if she's asleep or if she's okay. So that's what I'll do if they have their CPAP on. Like I said, if it's their home one, I don't necessarily do that just because it's their own. But if it's the hospital's, I will, like I said, just poke my head in the door just to check on them and make sure they're doing good. I won't have to wake them up or anything. I just like to take a peek. So now that that's done, I will go to this person that has their med due at midnight. I'll go in, scan them. The time I went in their room was scanned into the MAR already. So I will just write down what, if they're on room air like he was earlier, what his SAT is, 98%, heart rate of 70, breathing 18 times a minute, and then he sounds a little diminished this time. Give the med, go into the next person's room. Let's say that she does want her BiPAP on. I will put her BiPAP on, check her SAT and everything, scan her med in, and our BiPAPs have Aerogens that you can give their inhaled medicines through the Aerogen. So if they have the BiPAP machine on, you can still give them their med without having to discontinue them. So I'll put the BiPAP on, scan the med, start the med up, check her SAT, say she's SATing 98%, same as earlier, with a heart rate of 80, breathing 20 times a minute. Obviously, instead of counting, I will go with what the BiPAP says for her respirations. But just to keep it simple, you know, I'll just say 20. And then I'll also say that she was clear this time as well. And then I'll write down any of the BiPAP settings that your facility has you chart down. So I'll write all that down. And then since she is on the BiPAP, I'm gonna go check on her third rounds as well. Because if a person is on a BiPAP, they have to be checked every single round. My hospital treats BiPAP and non-invasive like that, like a ventilator. So CPAPs, you only have to check on them that one time. I like to poke my head in just, you know, because I just like to. It makes me feel better. And then BiPAP, you have to treat like a vent. You have to go see him every 4 hours. Next person, we have to go see him because he has a trach. So what I'll do is I'll check his SAT. He doesn't have any meds due because he only gets a while awake treatment and a Q12. So the Q12 and the while awake treatment aren't due until the next day. So I'll see that he's, you know, on room air or whatever oxygen device that he's on. If the nurses had to put him on anything, I'll write down what time I went in there. So let's just say I went in at 01:10. I'll listen to him, see that he's got some raw guy. I'll suction him out because he has a trach and you gotta suction them. And I may have not said this earlier, I may have forgot. If they have a suction order, obviously for a trach, you'll wanna listen to them, and if they need to be suctioned, then you can suction them. Sometimes people, if they've had a trach for a long time, they'll let you know yes or no, I need to be suctioned. Sometimes they like to do it themselves. It just kinda depends on the person. So this person's got some raw guy, they wanna be suctioned, so I'll suction them. Their SAT's now 96 with a heart rate of 90, breathing 20 times a minute. Everything's all good. Now down to the next person. See, this person only gets a pulse ox check. So I just go in, write down the time I went in there, see that they're on 2 liters, they're sat at 98%, with a heart rate of 70, breathing 18 times a minute. That's all we had to do this rounds. This is the only lady that we didn't have to see this rounds because she only gets the incentive. And again, I'm so sorry if this is confusing. It's kind of hard to explain because there is a lot. So, and it's not as scary as it may look. It's really not. There's just quite a bit. And each hospital is different. Every hospital will have you do something different. So keep that in mind. And like I said, I'm really bad at explaining stuff like this. So if I jump around and forget things, it's my bad. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I will do my best to answer them. And if I have to do a second video explaining this, maybe with fewer examples, then I will do that. I just wanted to include as much of what you may see on the floor on a night shift as possible. And obviously when you start working, if you work on the floor, and depending on where you are, like how short staffed they are or how many patients, you'll probably have 20-30 patients. So this is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is only 6 people. So more than likely you'll have a lot more than this to do, but really it's not difficult at all, I promise. So for last rounds, I'll start this around 3, seeing that he's the only med to give, and it's not due till 4. I may start at 3 just so that I can check on my BiPAP and poke my head into my CPAP, or I could start at 3:30. Like, it really just, you know, whatever just you want to do or whatever your hospital allows you to do. But I'll just say I'll start at 3:30 just so that I can check my BiPAP and peek in at this person to make sure they're okay. So first I'll go at my BiPAP, 331, write down all the BiPAP settings that I need to chart. They didn't have another scheduled med, so I didn't have to worry about that. They sound clear, they're satting well, so they're good. That's all I needed to do for that, was just a BiPAP check basically, and check on their sat. That's really all I needed to do. So then I will just go poke my head in, and this person, I don't need to chart anything for it. I don't need to write down a specific time, just because, like I said, for CPAPs, you don't really have to check them Q4. I just like to, just because, you know, the positive pressure, it's not natural on your lungs. So just poking my head in the door is all I do. So that's all I do for that person. And then I will go give my med. So I'll go scan in. The nurse had to put him on 2 liters, sat 97, you know, heart rate of 90, breathing 20 times a minute, and he sounds diminished. So obviously Mr. Einstein here is declining a little bit, so the doctor's gonna have to intervene and see what's going on there. But for me, right now, he's doing okay. So check on that. And then I will go down here to Mr. Presley to check on him and his trach. So I'll go in, write down what time I went in. So let's say I went in at, I don't know, 4:02. I see that he's still on room-air. I see that he's a little hoarse, asking me if he wants to be suctioned. He does not, so I don't have to worry about suctioning. And I'll see that he's satting 96, heart rate of 82, breathing 18 times a minute. So that's that round. Third rounds is done. So that's basically it. I know I had this little spiel a second ago, but I really hope that this made sense. Again, I'm not trying to confuse anyone. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I just wanted to give like a brief, quick little breakdown of how rounds are done and how I do them. Obviously, each hospital is going to be different. Everybody's going to have their own routine and how they do things. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt. This was just supposed to be like a little FYI, not so much like a teaching or this is how you're supposed to do things, because like I said, each hospital is different. You're going to be doing things your own way, different times, different things. So just do what your hospital wants you to do. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask. I do not mind answering your questions, elaborating if I need to, or going into more detail about things. I will definitely do that for you. So thank you so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do so, and turn on notifications so you know anytime I upload a video. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, you guys.